Cool. All right. So, welcome to Makers, everyone. Welcome to another day or another edition of Makers Apprenticeships Demo Day, to be specific. My name is Eddie, and I'll be your host for this afternoon. Coming up, we've got two great presentations from two awesome teams. But first, I'd like to give you a bit of background that will help you to appreciate this occasion. So this is a very unusual Makers cohort because we've tailored their program, as you probably all know, given your backgrounds, to focus on COBOL. Now, some people probably outside of this audience might snigger when they hear that we're training people to use COBOL, but I'm sure that's not the case for anyone here today, because you all know that despite the fact that it was invented in 1959, it's very much alive and indeed relied upon for things that underpin the basic functions of our society, like ATM transactions, point-of-sale payments, social security, holiday bookings, all that kind of stuff. And today you're going to learn that our two teams have built systems to help us rebuild society. So there's two new services about to be launched that will sit nicely alongside all of those really crucial systems. But I'm getting ahead of myself a bit here. We'll come to them later on. Today is a celebration of their achievements, but it's also a milestone in the history of Makers. When Rob and Evgeny, the founders, first launched Makers, we worked with hiring partners that were using languages like Ruby and JavaScript. Some might call those the cool languages. As we grew and started to work with bigger clients, we started to work with people who preferred languages like Java and C#. And now we're training COBOL developers. And if you think about who in the world uses COBOL, I think it's really a sign of how far we've come from those old Ruby days. I also believe that we've put together one of the best, most engaging COBOL programs there is. And it's huge credit to my boss, our director of training, Kay Lack, for that. I did it myself, part of it anyway, as I was kind of upskilling to be able to help the apprentices do this work. And I really enjoyed it. And I also really enjoyed using COBOL and really enjoyed learning about it. And you'll be pleased to know that the apprentices have also all really enjoyed learning COBOL. And some of them have even said they prefer it to Ruby. So all good there. On their bespoke program, these fine people started off by picking up the basics and some might say oddities of COBOL syntax. They've wrestled with documentation that is sometimes really not that beginner friendly. And they've discovered that finding help online can sometimes be extremely hard. They then started working in teams to build a bulletin board system. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with bulletin board systems, they're kind of like a precursor to social media platforms, or perhaps sites like Reddit, where you can make posts and reply to them and maybe play games and share things. So they built those. But what they didn't know at the time was that for their final project, the ones they'll present today, they were going to be tasked, or they were tasked, with extending those applications, those bulletin board systems. So they had to deal with this very authentic challenge of not knowing how the requirements would change when they were building the original bulletin board systems. But not only that, they were tasked with actually swapping code bases for the final project. So we had two teams building two different bulletin board systems for that project, and then they've swapped code bases. So Team A has extended code base of Team B, and Team B has extended the code base of Team A. So they also have this additional challenge of trying to grapple with legacy code that they had not themselves written, which is again like a really authentic engineering challenge. It's been really fantastic to work with these 7 people. I think they've done really amazingly well, and I think you will enjoy working with them a lot. But without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to the first team to present. And I've just realised we've never actually agreed on a running order. So who would like to go first?
We'll go first.
Yeah, we're quite happy to dive in, Eddie.
All right. So Francesca, you said sort of quickest and most loudly.
Yeah.
I think. Is that all right with everyone else?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Please then, Francesca and Co. It's over to you.
Okay, I know Eddie's kind of set the scene, but I'll just kind of go on from that before we dive into the presentation. We obviously are using Terminal. Terminal here is the graphic interface, so we quite early realized the restrictions that had, using the terminal as the interface that the user is going to interact with. So rather than kind of viewing that as a limitation, we wanted to really dive into that and center our whole theme around that. So we've decided we took a bit of inspiration from the Fallout gaming series. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but it's basically set in a post-apocalyptic world. And we've kind of driven into this device. It's called a Pip-Boy, which is a portable device which uses a terminal interface that users can interact with. So it really that's the theme we're going down. So if you'll allow us to take you on this little journey, excuse some of the puns and wording that we're going to use, but we're going to take you to imagine a post-apocalyptic era and show you our Pip-Boy device. So we'll go from there.
Okay, so I'm just gonna set the scene a little bit. So we were wandering around the wasteland, scavenging to find certain materials and hopefully the odd Nuka-Cola, when we came across one of the latest and greatest Pip-Boys, the 3000 model. Excitedly, we booted it up and found some pretty cool applications on the device. However, we did feel like it needed some different and new features on them, hopefully to monetize it a little bit as well. After some tweaking at Crafting Bench, we managed to add some cool new features that we'd like to run you through all today.
Okay, so given the lawless nature of this post-apocalyptic era and the prevalence of hackers, the introduction of a login feature was an important addition. So this gives travelers the opportunity to enjoy the features of the Pip-Boy whilst protecting the precious credits. So if your username and password isn't initially recognized at login, the Pip-Boy will redirect the user to a page where the option to create an account can be selected. So usernames must be unique. It shouldn't be much of a problem given that the majority of the population is being wiped out. But in the instance that a username is already taken, a prompt will instruct the traveler for a new username to be inputted. The passwords have got to be at least 6 characters and contain at least 1 number in order for them to be accepted. Prompts will highlight specific issues with the password if it doesn't meet the criteria, and a more suitable password must then be entered. Again, account numbers must fit a set criteria for them to be accepted. So in this instance, they have to be 8 characters and can only contain numbers. So now that account's been created, the traveler can log in and access the Pip-Boy's various features. And features can be accessed from the menu screen. So from here, it's also possible to update your account number, the payments, or change your password. And we'll change the password now. So both of these features are password protected. So before changing your password or your bank account, you have to input your current password. And once that's accepted, you can put in your new password. It's got to fit the same criteria as previously, and prompts will appear if it doesn't. You then have to re-enter. If the password doesn't match, it will again prompt you that there's not a match, and you'll have to re-enter the password to match before it's then accepted. Once the change is confirmed, password update's complete.
Okay, so once our users are in, they've got an account, they're going to want to use some of our features. But, in this world, nothing's free. So it costs a little bit. And all our new users start with 0 credits. So one of the first things they're probably going to want to do is buy some credits. Because as you'll see to begin with, if they try and access anything without any, it'll throw up an error message, tell them they don't have enough. So now we'll look at how they can buy credits. So they'll navigate through to the buy credit screen. From here, I'll ask them how many they'd like to purchase. They can enter an amount. It'll then tell them how much that will cost in our currency, which in this world is our bottle caps, and then they'll enter their password to confirm it. So then takes them through to a page, a processing page that'll automatically redirect in a few seconds. Then thanks them for their purchase and tells them the transaction is pending. Because we're no fools, we've been swindled before in our lawless society, and we're not going to just give them credit straight away. So then we decided to add an admin feature so we can check we've been paid before we credit their account. So our admins can log in, similar to the users. They can also create new admins, again, quite similar to how we create users, but more importantly, they can process payments. So from here, we can process either a single payment. If, for example, someone's just given us a few caps here, there, then we can put it straight onto their account, credit them straight away. So we enter their bank account number, how much we've been paid, and that will credit their account accordingly. Or for when we've got lots of pending transactions, we can credit via all in one go, via bank statement. So once we've got all the money, once they've bought us all our caps and we know all of those transactions are ready, we can change them all in one go to confirmed, and it will all go onto the appropriate user's account. So once that's happened, when the user logs back in, they'll be able to see the credits on their account. So there we go, 200 credits at the top there.
So now that the user has some credits, they might want to have a little look at some of the features we have. And the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the message board. Yeah, so one of the main things that a person is going to want to do in the post-apocalypse is obviously connect with other survivors. And so a message board is absolutely integral to this program and its functioning for the users. So we've got a message board which displays all of the messages that have been posted by other users. And you can check those messages, check the body, see whatever other people are talking about. So this particular person there wanted somebody to come and help them with some experiments. There's number 2, you can see somebody's lost their son, and I was asking for some help to find them because the world we live in is absolutely horrible. We can also scroll through. It shows the first 10 and then the next 10, and that goes on for however many messages there are. We might also want to write our own message, which, as you can see, cost 1 credit. Our credits have gone down by to 199, and we're going to just post "Hello World" for some reason to this awful society, and then we can go and check our post to make sure it's there. And as you can see, it's there with my username as the author, and it's posted for everyone to see.
Luke's muted.
Luke, I muted you.
How about now?
There we go.
Eddie, don't take control of my... So, as being the only hyper-intelligent super mutant around, to say that the vault was boring with all these unintellectual vault dwellers walking around is an understatement. I mean, one of them even made a gang the other week called the Tunnel Snakes. So to pass the time for myself and my unobjected brilliance, I created a games feature for the Pip-Boy system, which we're going to display for you now. We have 3 games. The main game we're going to look at is the Hangman game. Now, for anyone that hasn't played Hangman before, which I'm hoping there's nobody, essentially it's a game where you have to guess the word that is currently needing to be guessed by entering letters. You have a certain amount of guesses. If you don't get the word within the amount of guesses left, as you can see, it's slowly appearing bit by bit as we get the letters correct, you lose. Or if you gain it within the guesses left, you win. In this case, however, we're not very good at Hangman, so we lose, and we've now been fed to mud crabs, unfortunately. We'll then be able to see a high score screen as well, which our score would have been updated on there if we did win. We'll display that for you now. That's done by a simple calculation of however many letters there are left to guess via how many guesses that you have left. In another possible hopeless endeavour I also wanted to maybe bring some... also we actually had 2 other games, apologies, 2 other games. Guess the number, where you could bet an amount of credits. And if you get the number right, you can then obviously get rewarded for the amount of credits. And a noughts and crosses game as well. Again, as I was saying, in the possibly hopeless endeavour I also wanted to maybe bring some intelligence to the community, get these guys thinking and using their brains rather than their brawn. So I made a library for people to read the rare literature that we came across. So this is the library page. You can choose a different book that you want to read, and it costs credits to read that book. Then when you get to that page, you can also see that there is an audiobook version as well for anybody that can't actually read, which is quite prevalent. and we'll display that for you now. And unfortunately, to enable the audiobook feature, you do need to read the book aloud. So, you know, sorry guys, but at least we got some money out of it. And that is everything as it comes to the library.
Okay, so the next feature, the weather feature, was created with the scavenger in mind. So we all know that getting caught out in a radiation storm without an umbrella is less than ideal. Not much weather forecasting equipment survived the apocalypse, so we used a predictive method. So it'll display a forecast from a range of potential weather occurrences. Less common weather occurrences such as radiation storms are less likely to occur, with more common weather events forecasted more regularly. Today we're predicting continuation of the nuclear winter storms we've experienced over the last few months. So winds from the east will increase as the day goes on. Sleety weather from around noon will develop into a heavy snowstorm by evening. So please wrap up well and exercise caution.
So we like to think that in this post-apocalypse, we're probably some of the most intelligent people around. So we thought we'd make an about page to really put our stamp on this society and just show our legacy to the world. So you can go onto our about page, find out a little bit about the program, how our credits are utilized, for example, any future features, what the dev team are doing now. Yeah, and just find out a little bit about us, the dev team, and what kind of things you can do on our app.
And that leads us to our final and probably our most proudest part of this, our feature that we took so long to make, a really vital part of this, something that every traveller needs, and that is a torch facility that they can access from anywhere by simply clicking T. Let's bring up a lovely radiant torch. And just to kind of end with that, obviously this equipment we got it's rare, it's special, we don't want to break it, so we had to do a lot of tests as we went through to make sure everything was working as expected. So as you can see here, it was to make sure we had it all functioning. Hey, so just to kind of round that off and kind of explain a little bit more about our learning journey throughout. I'll stop sharing my screen now. So quite a lot of things came from as we went through. A lot of things, particularly in the past week, we'd learned. We were quite proud of the files and updating the user files appropriately. That was quite a block for a while, and spent a lot of time working on that and debugging and how to make that work using tests and functions like that. Also, we're quite happy with how we refactored quite a bit of our code and used subprograms and functions to separate to get separation of concern. With all our features go to a different subprogram, so that if we want to change them and maintain them in the future, it won't affect the others. So there were some bits that we were quite proud of in this. But as a group, when we reflected as a whole, the thing we found we probably learned the most was actually in terms of how we worked as a team. We kind of had some trouble with that in the first week, in that we had all these ideas, all these things we wanted to implement, and we kind of all just rushed off and did them, and working alone quite a lot, and found we kept getting stuck. We were getting frustrated, maybe by ourselves because everyone else was busy doing something else, and it just wasn't working. We were getting stuck. So we took on board some advice, some feedback, regrouped, reflected on that, and kind of changed our approach. Used a ticketing system more. We were using it before, but a bit more appropriately, to branch into pairs and to work through blocks together, come in as a whole group if we needed to, or setting kind of limits on when we'd ask for help or when we'd move on to something else. And we found we worked much more efficiently. We got all the things we wanted done, which we probably wouldn't have done if we'd have stayed solo. And I'm sure the others agree, it was much more enjoyable, to be honest, when we kind of got on with that. And it worked really well. So thank you for that. I hope you've enjoyed, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Cool, thank you. Really nice.
That was amazing, guys.
Very good.
Are there any questions from the audience?
I'd just love to sort of reiterate that bit about the teamwork and actually working together. That's fundamental, particularly in our organisation that you're going to be joining. Being an individual superstar is not actually going to get us as an organisation any further forward. Actually being a fully committed team member who's actually willing to reach out and engage somebody else and get help from somebody else is actually an opportunity for somebody else to learn as well. and it sounds like you enjoyed it more when you worked together. Is that true? Is that a nod from all of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm so glad about that, because that's probably one of the most important things. As a team, we can do amazing things. As individuals, an individual might shine, but I doubt we'll achieve amazing things together. So I'm so chuffed you learned that lesson. Yeah. What was the best bit about it? What's the best thing, either something you've learned or the thing you most enjoyed?
I think for me personally, once we did start working as a team, coming up with kind of not even the really difficult bits to code, but like, for example, the torch, like that just kind of came out of nowhere, and we were like, oh, we'll just put like a little fun bit in that, like, we'll say it's like the best feature and the most difficult one, but actually it's just like turning the screen yellow. But like we started coming up with more and more ideas when we worked together and we were discussing it together. But not even so much the actual implementation of it, but more of the overall design was quite enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think especially in that second week when we really started to bounce off each other, because we were spending more time together and really discussing things a lot. It was a more engaging week. It was more fun, but I think seeing the kind of things come into fruition and potentially exceeding what we thought we'd be able to accomplish when we first set out the week prior, I think seeing all that coming together. And I think for me, one of the most satisfying bits was, as we were adding more things and the code base was growing, and we made the decision to separate and really focus on, making sure those sub-programs had kind of one purpose. Once we then started to tidy the code base up and everything, running the tests were still passing, and the whole thing became a lot more easier to kind of digest, and the readability improved. I think then looking back on that and looking at the amount of code we produced and what it actually did was quite satisfying for me.
Yeah, I agree. Probably a similar point of separating it out, which we wouldn't have done had we not come together, because we were all working on different bits. So I think it was only when we put it together that we realised how we could separate it out and still have it functioning. And particularly one moment as well, the block that I'd had quite a lot individually and then came to work in a pair, and when we finally figured it out, that was just such a lovely moment of, oh, we've done it, it works, and someone to do it with as well made it better. So yeah, that was a good moment for me.
I think that's really important, because when you share a problem and together you fix it, you both get a buzz out of it. Actually, it's not just the buzz for the person who comes up with the final solution. It's the buzz for both of you. You've done it together, and I think that's a really important lesson as well. Yeah, good.
I think Andy's covered most of it there, and what Andy hasn't covered has been mentioned in the comments. I think that's impressive to say that. And by the way, as somebody that's never coded, even turning the screen yellow is amazing to me.
Yeah, my parents are watching, so I thought they might say something like, I couldn't do that. But yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. Really lovely presentation, and thanks Andy and Trevor for your questions and comments. Andy, we've actually got a new cohort starting on Monday, so if you could come along on Monday and tell them what you told this lot about the value of teamwork, it'd be amazing. I'm just going to book you every 4 weeks. Just come along to Makers and talk to the new cohort, please.
Do you know what? I actually think you can tell people that teamwork's valuable, and they might hear it. I think this group worked out that teamwork was invaluable. Yeah, totally valuable, and that's a much more powerful lesson. So I think it's like, how do you bring up kids? And by the way, I've got 2 quite grown teenagers. I may have made big mistakes, but you can't tell them anything. You've got to give them opportunities to learn and work it out for themselves. And actually, it's a much more lasting lesson. So I wouldn't do it. I would celebrate when teams come back with, sharing those kind of wisdoms.
That's fair. Yeah, totally on board with that. Yeah. Gary, I think you've got your hand up.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Yeah, fantastic stuff there. I just wondered, do you actually know how many lines of code you created, the ones in the program and the ones that you also binned? Because that would be quite a useful informatic for yourselves moving forward as well. So from going from nothing to the amount you actually have created, it'd be just good to understand that overall.
I don't know how many we binned. I think when we decided to split it up, It was it about 4,000, 5,000 lines?
I think so, and it's down to about 1,000, but obviously with different programs that have it in.
Yeah, so we did a lot of separation, which was what we focused on for like a good, probably a couple of days, would you say?
Yeah,
Good couple of days. Yeah, because we just wanted everything separated. It just looked tidier and nicer.
Yeah, great stuff.
Cool. Thanks for the question. All right. Really, once again, really lovely presentation and really awesome project. Now let's move on.
Can I just say as well, really confidently done.
Yeah.
Well done. I don't know how many of you were feeling nervous in advance of that, but you came across brilliantly, beautifully. Very competent, very capable, very organised, very slick. Well done.
Thank you, and thanks for all the kind comments in the chat as well.
Yeah, thanks everyone. All right, let's move on to the second team. Take it away.
Matt's going to be sharing. I think before we get into it, we should just quickly say, because I don't know how to do clap emojis and things on Teams. Well done to the Teenage Mutant Ninja COBOL Turtles team. Absolutely fantastic job. Part of me thinks you knew how good it was and you still went first, so a bit unfair. But but let's go on to house. We just get straight into it. Emily, take it away.
Hello, we are Team COBOL the Barbarian, and welcome to our presentation.
Yeah, so collectively, none of us have come from a coding background on our team. However, we all have a shared passion for coding. So with the career paths we've all been on, there's been no opportunities for us to move across to coding until the DWP offered this wonderful apprenticeship, which allows us to pursue our passions and with a working livable wage, which we know isn't offered on all apprenticeships. So we very much appreciate that. And just echoing what Eddie said at the beginning, we've been here for 12 weeks, only 6 weeks of that with COBOL. So before we join the wonderful staff at DWP, we have spent 12 weeks here on an intensive boot camp with Makers Academy.
So the challenge, as Eddie touched on, for the past 2 weeks, we've been tasked with building new functionality into the bulletin board systems that we created in Teamwork Week. So some of the challenges that we found when we were working with the new code was that it took us a while to work out what was going on with the code and breaking it down to understand what was fully going on under the hood. Once we broke the code down, we realised it wouldn't have been possible to add the new features we intended. So we had to rewrite some elements of the code base to support the extensions. We found it initially quite challenging to break down the existing long code base to be able to split it off into sections and into the subprograms.
So in order to monitor the progress and ensure completion, we broke tasks into tickets, which we divided up using a Trello board, which we worked on either individually, in pairs, or a lot of time as a whole team.
We also had daily Zoom calls to discuss progress and work through any potential blockers together, as well as doing end-of-day reflections. But ongoing, we were always in the constant communication because we were such a small team. It was just possible to do that.
And with that, that brings us to our main program. So we, before we begin, I should say, unlike the other teams post-apocalyptic, we've gone ultra modern. What we've realized is that COBOL is the main language that should be used moving forward. So we believe Google and everything needs to be rewritten with COBOL so it's more user-friendly. So with that in mind, we had to borrow some high-tech equipment from Makers, and we're going to go live to our server room. So we're going to introduce to you now Friend Face. So here's a brief glimpse of what our new graphics look like, and we'll go straight into the program. So we're just going to show our server room with the latest computer there. It just takes a little while to load, as you may see. It's doing so much, it takes a few seconds. And with that, we're straight into friend face. So here we have a new user, Trevor, I believe, and he's trying to log in, but he's yet to create an account, so that's not going to work. So if Trevor can go back to the create screen, if he can put in his name and a secure password. Oh, he's gone with password. Not very secure. Yep, change your mind. Gone again. Got to put something more secure, and he's gone with password with a 1 on the end. Very good, Trevor. If you submit that, you'll now be able to log in with those credentials. And that takes us straight into the main menu where we have our message board, our fun and games section, a credit store, and our account details. Trevor's going to go into the message board where you will see sponsored messages and you will see the general board. Sponsored messages will stay there. And as we'll see, you can go into that. You can see the messages from a company called Wolf Caller, and they've decided to advertise their fizzy drink. And as Trevor scrolls through the multiple messages that are on here, Wolf Caller will stay at the top. And he will continue to look through all of the messages out there. He's trying to go further, but you can't go any further because you reached the end of the message section. As you come back, Trev, you'll get back to the beginning. And you won't be able to go any further than that because you've reached the beginning of the message board. So he's gone in, he's looked at a message. Looks like Wolf Caller are trying to spam the system and get some free advertisement. And they've logged in under the company name of Frank's Fluids, and they're trying to pretend to be someone else on their products. Other users have jumped on that and are pointing that out. As we go to the next screen, we'll see that Frank's Fluids have become a bit more savvy and they've logged in as Frank F to try to trick them, but our users are too savvy and they're having a bit of giggle at Frank's Fluids' expense. So there, he has tried to add a comment, but you can't add a comment unless you are a VIP member of our friend face. He's also tried to write a message, but you can't do that because he hasn't got any credits, and messages do cost 1 credit. So he's gone to the fun and games section where he's going to try to play a game. Again, everything costs in our modern universe, and it hasn't got enough credits to play a game, which costs 5 credits. As we see in the credit store, real money will get you credits. £10 for 10 credits. You know, we're just like Facebook in that respect. We'll milk you dry. As we got the account details, you'll see that Trevor is a standard user. He doesn't have a bank card on file, which means he wouldn't be able to purchase credits. He's gone back. He's going to try to buy some, and it's going to say no card on file. Please add your bank card. So if Trevor can go back in and add his bank detail, credit card details or debit card details, that would be great. And Trevor's trying to trick the system. He's putting in all zeros, hoping to get away with some free credits. It's not going to work, Trev. As we can see, no card is still on file. If Trevor can now get out his actual credit card and put in some information, if everyone can look away, because this is actual Trevor's credit card details. So from that down, he's got to put an expiry date that's set in the future. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. He has. And the CVV. Last 3 digits on the back of your card there, Trev. Lovely. As we can see, he now has a bank card on file, which will now allow him to go to the credit store where he can purchase wonderful credits. He's gone with 25 credits and it's updated straight away in the top corner. So he gets instant functionality to this wonderful platform. He's gone back into messages. He's going to write his first message now that he has credits. And he's gone with, hi, everyone. I'm Trevor. And his message is looking to get a face full of friends. So drop me a comment. Very, very good work, Trev. Post that. And that's cost you a credit, as you can see in the top corner. And straight away it's updated to the board. He's clicked in and you can see his message in full where people can comment and become friends with Trevor. He's gone back in. He wants to comment on this Frank's Fluids post. He obviously finds it humorous, wants to leave his own mark. Can't do that because he's not a VIP user. So if Trevor's going to come out there, yeah. He is now bought 100 credits to be able to become VIP. He's spent those credits and he's now a VIP user, as we just saw. He's purchased an extra 50 credits because he's enjoying his time on here so much. He's gone back into messages. He really wants to leave this comment. He must have something really witty to say. And he's gone with, so funny. Wasn't really worth the wait, but well done, Trev. You've managed to leave a comment. As we come out of that, he's now going to go to the fun and games section where he wants to play a game. He's going to go with guess the number. On here, he only has 3 attempts to guess a number between 1 and 10. But if he guesses correctly, he will win 10 credits. It costs 5 credits to play the game. Too low, and no, failed. Didn't want to play any more of that. He's going to go straight into guess the word, very much like a hangman game. You have 15 guesses to get this right, but as you can see, there's reveal word section. So if Trevor is unlucky enough not to get this right, very close, could get it, and he didn't. You can press R to reveal the word at a cost of 5 credits, which he has done, and the word was Gnostic. Gnostic. He's playing again. He's going to try to win all of his money back. If he gets this right, he will win 10 credits. Very close with this one. He's only got 2 guesses left. And he gets it right with Crypt, and he scored 10 credits instantly. He's now going to check the high scores table to see if he's made it onto the board. And he hasn't, unfortunately. Better luck next time, Trev. Coming out there, he's playing Tic-Tac-Toe. This would have cost 5 credits, but as a VIP user, you do get to play Tic-Tac-Toe for free all day long. Hours and hours and hours can be spent on this. He's decided just to have the one game, though, on this instance. He's gone back to the board where he's going to leave a message. And he is telling us that FriendFace is the best platform ever. Very kind of you, Trevor. Oh, he's going to also add on that, oh, he loves it here. That's very kind. And instead of posting this message, he's going to sponsor it, which cost him 10 credits. And now it's on there for all to see for up until midnight. So you can see his sponsored post there. He's going to come out, log out, and obviously he'll be back. He's got 79 credits left to spend. That brings us to the end of that. We have got more to show you, but it means turning the tape, and that would take far too long to load.
So to build upon the other team's code from Teamwork Week, we've added some key new features and functionality, including the introduction of standard and premium accounts, which you can see to the right. It gives a breakdown of what each account gets.
Yes, we also introduced the credit store, which you just saw, where a user can purchase credits using real money, but they can convert a lot of credits into a VIP membership, which will give them full functionality of the FriendFace platform.
Mm-hmm. And users can also check their account details to view their own credits, add or update their bank details, check the card's expiry date, or update their own password.
We've also introduced sponsored posts, so premium users can now sponsor their posts for 24 hours for 10 credits. These are featured at the top of every page above the standard list of messages. Only 2 are available each day to maintain exclusivity, with posts resetting at midnight.
And then finally, we introduced a commenting section on our posts. So on a standard post, you can leave a comment if you are a VIP user.
In order to make our application as easily maintainable for future developers as possible, we've broken as much logic as we could into separate modules in line with single responsibility principle. This allowed us to accurately test individual subprograms and we also placed emphasis on making our code as readable and extendable as possible.
Yes, and then that brings us to the highs and lows. And I think, team, if it's okay, we'll do this as an open poop sandwich, and we'll start with the lows.
Yeah, so we found it a bit frustrating at times when we were trying to add new features, when it required learning additional COBOL material outside of what we'd learned already, because of the lack of documentation and our experience. So it meant that some things took us longer than we initially anticipated.
Yeah, and getting the screen section to have a friendly user interface with JNU COBOL was very, very difficult, as it doesn't have much in the way of front-end functionality. Maybe that's different with micro COBOL, but it's not what we've been working with.
Yeah, and as an extension to that, we end up having to abandon extra features and functionality due to time constraints or our own limitations, such as being down to one-person team at times due to external circumstances. But along with lows, there are also some highs.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the highs that we felt were that we'd managed to add and create new features which we got to work whilst working with COBOL in a way which we didn't initially feel it was intended to be used.
Yeah, we felt like we've enjoyed working within our small team of like-minded people, and we feel like we've achieved a lot despite working through multiple challenges.
And after being given the old code from the other team, it was really rewarding to be able to refactor the old code and make it do different things successfully. So yeah, it was really nice and rewarding for that.
And that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you for watching, and we will now be accepting rhetorical questions only.
I can't do a rhetorical question, but how did you find my credit card number? I think that was actually amazing. So it was, and it was a point well made at the beginning of it that you three didn't have a massive amount of coding experience in your background, and to actually be able to present something like that is impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well said. Anybody else want to jump? Oh, Sarah, you got a question, or you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just noticed at the beginning you mentioned that you worked using a Trello board. How did you find that worked out for you?
Well, the first time we started this, about 4 weeks ago, when we were creating the board just to show the other teams, we set it up. We didn't really use it because we were starting from scratch. However, as we progressed and into the final 2 weeks, it worked really well. We went there first and we set up all of our ideas of what we saw the bulletin board being able to do that it couldn't already do, and we blocked that all down, and then we moved things across into compartments for who could tackle which task, as you may have saw on the image that we shared, and it worked really well. We kept going back to it and updating it and moving things to the completed section, which was very satisfying to see how much we were getting through. So even when there was a couple of things left that we put down as extra features that, as Matt pointed out, we didn't have enough time to complete, we could see how much we'd actually achieved in our time. And as we said, we did have some extra challenges. We had a day where it was solely Emily coding by herself, and she's done a fantastic job with that. And we were down to 2 members for a great deal of time because circumstances on the team meant someone was moving to be able to work full time with yourselves. So we felt like we'd achieved a lot, but just seeing those boxes move across the page slowly from ideas to working on to completed was great to see. Otherwise, I think the whole thing could have been a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, no, it is. It's good to get that visual representation, isn't it, of seeing the work that you have actually done. No, it's good to see it. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, go on, Andy.
I like the fact that you talked a little about sort of what your typical day was, starting with sort of a gathering in the morning. You're sort of, what have we got to do today? What a challenge, perhaps an opportunity to share blockers, things you want a bit of help with, and then that, I think, as in when you called it retrospective, but a wash up at the end of the day. I think, did you find that sort of that constant communication useful? Was that productive? Did that make you feel part of a team? I don't know. What was your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think it definitely helped, especially when it came to blockers. Rather than trying to face something on your own, which you can spend a whole day trying to figure out, it meant that we could get other people's input. And a lot of the times it was silly little mistakes that someone had made. So by having the extra eyes on it and everyone pulling together, it meant that we could get through things a lot faster than if we were on our own. And it also it made it feel more like we were working as a team, even though people had to be absent for days for certain circumstances and things like that. It kind of helped bring us all back together by making sure that we made the time to have those meetings and made the time to obviously check if everyone's all right and see how everything's going and like fill everyone in on where we'd got to. Good.
You both teams also talked about, and I guess what the challenge is, taking over somebody else's code that you've never seen before and trying to work out what on earth it's doing and why it's doing it that way. What were the kind of challenges in that space for you, and what would have made it better? Because that's the thing you can learn from and do yourselves.
Big question. It looks like Emily's got an answer though. I'll let you speak, Emily.
I think when we went through the other team's code, one of the things that we really liked is how they'd commented on a lot more things than we had. So it's something that we used and carried forward, which it really helped us when we were going through it, which when we compared their code against our original code, we hadn't really done. So I think it's really beneficial to look through at how they laid theirs out and how they approached the task. It gave us ideas on how to improve on ours going forward.
It was an amazing learning opportunity to read the other team's code, because they did things much better than we did in some places, so it was really nice to go through that.
Yeah, it was good. I think that sort of document, some of the systems, and I guess when the systems that you're going to come and work on were first built, some of them in the 70s, 80s, probably people didn't expect them in the 2020s to still be being used. But what it means is those bits of code have been changed far more often than they were first written. You write them once, but then you have to maintain them for potentially many years. So actually being able to go back and do that maintenance quickly, efficiently, and understand what on earth's going on is a really important part of it. So it's a good lesson to learn. It's good to see that picking up somebody else and going, oh, I like what they did there. Good lesson.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
To build on what Andy just said, even when that other person is yourself.
Yeah. So
what was I thinking 6 months ago?
Yeah,
we did have that even when we looked back on the code that we produced 2 weeks prior, and we thought, why on earth have we done that? Or how terrible is that indentation? Why didn't we indent that properly? And so yeah, that was even just looking at how far we progressed in those 2 weeks when we revisited the code. Yeah, we criticized our own stuff quite a bit as well.
Yeah, little things like indentation make a massive difference when you come back and read it. Yeah, it might seem like it's noddy, but get the basics right and it's so much easier. Yeah, good.
Yeah, there was nothing like slagging off somebody's code only to realize you'd written it yourself.
Yeah.
Diana, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. I just feel so incredibly proud of all of you, and I just had to comment on the fact of 12 weeks and wow, when we first got together right at the beginning, seeing you a bit more fresh-faced, but yeah, absolutely, well done, massive well done. I wondered if I could be cheeky and thinking ahead of more DWP apprentices starting on Monday, what words of advice would you give?
From me, some of the things you've picked out there, that importance of teamwork, that importance of sharing problems and reaching out for help, the importance of getting some of the basics right, in terms of, if we've got coding standards around things, doing that, reading the documentation, embracing it all, engaging, throwing yourself in wholeheartedly, and enjoy the learning process. I think for me, I think you could sort of sit there with a stigma about COBOL, but actually what you all got a buzz out of was delivering something, building something, achieving something. And I say that doesn't matter in many ways what the language is to do that, what you're doing on. You're going to be involved in some of the biggest, most mission critical systems in the UK. That's something to be proud of. It's something to take seriously. And it's something to do as a team and enjoy.
Well said.
And I think I would summarize that in one word: joy it. I think the thing that's come across me in any time we've got together or I've spoken to some of you individually is you have enjoyed it, and that has given you the incentive to put the effort into it, and that's good. And it's good to see the outcome from it because that just builds on that. So that's impressive. I'm actually listening to the likes of Stuart, Andy, and some of the others, because you guys are coders. That's where you've come from. That's what you know. It's a completely different world to me. But actually, seeing your reaction to that is, yeah, that tells me an awful lot.
Well, if any of you get to dig around in the PSCS code, you'll find my name there. If you find it shocking code, just come and tease me about it later on. That's absolutely fine, because that was my early days. And I loved it. I love being part of a big team doing something really important for the country. It's a fantastically good feeling when we get things right. So yeah, but do tease me when you find some rubbish I did. Yeah.
Diana, did you put your hand up again?
No, I just didn't take it down. Sorry. But I will post in the chat. I'd love also that's incredible feedback. Thank you. But from our makers too, so I can pass that on. It's nothing like hearing it from your peers as well. So yeah, please post some wise words, and I'll put it on their day one pack for them.
Cool. Nicola, I think you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just from an HR point of view, so in HR, we are a different breed altogether, a bit like coders, I think, but we're a completely different breed. We know nothing about IT. We just use our laptops, and that's as far as we understand IT. But I've listened in from the beginning of the session, and I have to say I've been nothing more than impressed by the way that people have presented the information. I do not understand a word that you've said to me today, but I do like the way that you've said it. And seeing the likes of Trevor and Andy's face throughout this whole session, I don't think I've seen Andy smile as much in the 4 months that I've known him, or the few months that I've known him. So he's thoroughly enjoyed today.
Do you know what?
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Nick, I think you're absolutely right. I've had a big beaming grin on.
Yes, you have.
And it was funny when Simon McKinnon, who's the boss in our organisation, we had a bit of a chat, him and one of my team, and they were talking about COBOL programming when you were doing it on punch cards, going back to the early sort of late 70s, and everybody in that conversation had a real big grin on as well. So you know, these things, you know, it does. It gets me in a good mood. So thank you.
Yeah, I can tell, and that's really nice for me to see as well. And all you, you know, all you guys are bringing something nice and fresh to the table, even though it's freshening up some old stuff. It's really nice to bring it back to the table. So can't wait for you to get into the business and get in and start working as a team. So that's the key word for me: teamwork. That's how you're going to achieve things. Well done.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And I'll make one other comment, not for you guys, but as one of those 15 DevOps that are joining you on Monday is hopefully coming to us as well. I'm really looking forward to it. That's a comment for makers.
Thank you. We're looking forward to meeting them.
Just make a comment. Just like better do it here than anywhere else. Just a big thanks to Eddie and Kay, even though she's not here, because you guys have been great over the past 12 weeks. Just like endless support from you guys. Yeah. Cheers.
Clap emoji.
Thank you.
You guys have been amazing.
Yeah, it's been a real huge pleasure to work with you seven. I think you've done really fabulously well. I mean, you say that we've been helpful, and hopefully that is the case. But I think it's also worth pointing out that in the last 2 weeks you've worked pretty much entirely independently of us. So everything everyone's seen today has been like completely built by the learners. So you deserve huge credit as well. So yeah, well done. I think we should probably wrap things up there. I would normally, you know, say some additional nice things and, you know, eulogize about the learners a bit, but I think everything has already been said by the attendees rather, which is really nice to see. Read those messages and listen to you getting involved and commenting and stuff. So really well done to the seven apprentices. Thank you so much for coming along, to everyone that came along today, and thanks for getting involved with the questions and stuff, and the chats. I think it made the occasion really nice and engaging. So thanks for that. And I hope to see you all in real life sometime in the future. Bye-bye.
Very strange times. Thank you all very much. That was a really good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, everybody.
Well done.
Bye-bye.